Hi guys, welcome to another SpeakuP Monday here live from tropical Nomad in Bali. So if you're here in Bali, remember 7 p.m. I know, a bit excited, wasn't it? 7 p.m. every Monday we're here, tropical Nomad in Bali. That's the second plug. Come down in person, right, and join us. So SpeakuP Monday is a platform which is number 65 from memory. It's a platform for inspiration through people sharing their stories, right? Through me Q&Aing a whole bunch of different people and extracting the juice, extracting the good stuff out of them in a way that is understandable by everybody else. And hopefully, you know, the intention is that maybe there's one thing you might pick up. It might be laughter, because with Mark over here, I laugh all the damn time, so you're going to hear me laugh a lot today. Even if it's a laughter or it's something a little bit more deeper, more serious, more involving, it's great, right? So whatever you get is what you're supposed to get, and it's a beautiful thing. So every Monday. Last thing I would say is that if you are interested in being a guest on SpeakuP Monday, remember, just get in touch with me. You've got my social media feeds. Most of you got my phone number anyway. You can get hold of me. You know how to get hold of me. Or if you want to volunteer somebody else, do it. So far I've got 100% batting average. When someone else nominates someone else, they just seem to say yes. I don't know why. So anyway, if that sounds like you, remember to nominate the person who you think would be a great speaker or someone with a great message to share. All right. Now, all that said and done, I'm going to let my guest introduce himself very, very, very shortly. Actually, I'll ask him one question because I guess it is a Q&A, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So today it's my enormous joy to introduce to you Marc-Yannick Ceyton. And, you know, one thing which I realized with him, we were just saying earlier on that, you know, I don't think in one SpeakuP Monday we can get all of the things which I see in this guy, you know. I think it would take 3. That's, by the way, that's not a little plug to say, hey, come back again twice.
It's really desperate. It's really desperate. I have to come back 3 times. I feel like, jeez.
Oh, God.
I was 5.
All right. So look, without further ado, we'll get on with this Q&A. And remember, nothing here is really scripted. We just make it up. It's two mates having a chat. That's what it feels like. So if you do have questions, feel free, probably in about the half an hour mark, to start maybe by Facebook Live, probably be easier, to send him some questions, and then towards the end we'll see if we can answer them, or if we run out of time we won't answer them, but heck.
You never said there were questions.
I know! It just popped in my head. I brought him here under false pretenses. I love it. I love it. So look, first question that comes straight into our mind is like, to me, you've had such an incredible life, and I've met some wonderful people over the years, and even though I don't know you that well, I always get a really positive, warm vibe from you. And the more I speak to you, the more that just comes out. You know, I mean, you were like a tennis professional. The first heli ski instructor in Switzerland. You know, like you have an amazing business with Commune and Commune X, building incredible communities around the world, right? You worked as an actor. You worked as a film producer, director, right? You worked with Weinstein, that we talked about maybe just a little bit, and so many more things, right? And yet...
Can I just say, definitely not as an actor. I was a terrible actor. I don't think that should be part of the portfolio.
Well, we might withdraw actor, but I'm sure there's some acting going on there, if you know what I mean.
No.
Oh, man. So look, where did you grow up? So like, where were you born then?
So I grew up in Germany.
Yeah.
And, you know, as sort of like, you know, sort of in 1970s, and I was like the only black kid in my town. You know, like people would go, oh my God, look at this guy. He's the only non-German. The school that I went to literally had no foreign kids. So, but the thing is that during that time, if anything, I got like reverse racism, where people were being so nice to me because I was a foreigner, and people would invite me into their homes, and people were so nice to me in Germany during that time. And I had a very positive childhood, you know, like I did a lot of sport. I loved growing up there, you know, like it was a really, you know, happy childhood, I would say. And because I had all the afternoons free, I would basically go and just do a lot of sport, hang out, socialize with whoever I could. School in Germany finished at 1 p.m. My mother wouldn't come home until about 5 or 6 p.m. So I basically had 5 hours to do whatever I wanted. And I did. And yeah, it was a happy childhood, I would say.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, like, so there's so many things that you've done and done really well at, right? So like, what would you attribute that to? Because from what it sounds like, you had that 5 or 6 hours, which was like, okay, what am I going to do now?
Time. So, you know what? I think when I was a kid, I had a dream of being much better at all of those things. You know, like if I had chosen something, then I would have been a better tennis player, a better, writer. I would have been better at one of those things. You don't sort of think, I want to grow up and be mediocre at all of these things. You want to be kind of, like sort of like a bit of a master of all. And, but I wasn't really, and I was always just good enough to fulfill that dream for myself and sort of, tick that off the list. But it was never to the point where, I would sort of go, oh my God, like you're the greatest tennis player, or you're the greatest this or that. But it was almost like a Forrest Gump kind of thing, where you're there during history and everything just kind of lined up pretty nicely for me, and I got a bit lucky. Probably if there was one skill that I had was that I was good with people. That I would meet people and people would kind of like me and invite me into their lives. And when I first moved to Hong Kong, every time I meet somebody in a bar, they'd be like, oh, you got to come and work for us. And I go, great, what do you do? And so I ended up in the craziest job. I think in my first couple of years in Hong Kong, every year that I went to the immigration office, they're like, oh, what is it this year? Every year it was different. I came as a university lecturer the first year. By the second year, I was a journalist. By the third year, what was I doing? That's right, I was working at Carrick's. Like, it was like a film production studio. And I only got hired there because the guy really liked me. And I think the only job I actually had was to take them out to dinner every night and entertain them. I don't think I had another job there, really. I was like, it was the weirdest world. And they'd be like, what are you doing? We're going for dinner. Come on, let's go. And I'm like, seriously? That's all I'm doing is just taking you guys to dinner. We never talked about business. Every month I get this paycheck and I'd be like, okay. And so I would just stumble into these weird situations. And I suppose I had a certain level of accomplishment in those fields, but probably never to the point where I wanted to dedicate myself to one thing. And then if I felt like I did okay in that, then I would just move on to the next thing that took interest. Like somebody said, hey, you should go and do this. I'd be like, all right, why not? And so that's kind of what it was. It was not being so good at one thing that I could have just stayed with it for a lifetime. It was always this idea that something else would come along, and I thought, that's a great challenge, I'm going to do it. And to be honest, don't do what I did, because half the time I regretted it massively. Like, I had a really good job at this university. I was literally running the whole place at 34. And then I went, all right, I'm going to quit this and go and do something else. And my family was like, you idiot. What are you doing? You're like, you've got a job for life, you can never be fired. And I was just like, look, I'm not going to do this for the next 40 years. This will just be boring. And then I'd find myself in some situation where going, oh no, this was another mistake. Why did I do this? But if you don't mind, pulling the cord, then you end up in all these different things. So I took a lot of risks, and some of those risks kind of turned out. And overall, I would say, it was a pretty happy life. So that doesn't mean that I wouldn't make any changes. Lots of changes could happen, but it was fine the way it worked out.
Oh man! And then so did you have any like siblings, brothers and sisters?
So my dad had some kids previously, not with my mom, and so I knew them in town. So I had like a couple of German, a German brother, a German sister, and then there was a Mexican sister who was floating around in the town that I grew up. And my mother would go, oh, there's one of your siblings. And I'd be, oh, that's nice. And that was kind of it. So my dad kind of cut around for a bit. And I think it's the reason why I only just became a dad when I was like 50. I just went, okay, probably time to be a dad. I just had never woken up previously and thought, I wish there were more kids here now. I just kept putting it off and off and off. And then finally I thought, okay, before I get too old to lift them, I'll just have kids. But,
and like, so cause again, like maybe you're getting some of this right, why I laugh so much when I'm always around you, and I love hanging out, I really do. But like, none of your siblings were like you, right? I mean, like none were they?
No, definitely not. They were normal. And and it's also your upbringing. Like, I went to these after school facilities sometimes, but it was always about meeting new people and making a connection with people. And that's really all that it came down to. And it wasn't certainly something that I didn't go out and think, oh, you've got to connect with more people. It just so happened that I would be really interested in something and I would go and pursue that, and I would meet the kids around there and go, okay, this is now my friend group. And then I have this friend's group and that friend's group and that friend's group. And that's kind of how it worked out. But it was a talent that was born out of my mother's desire to lease a lot of places and renovate them and do them up beautifully and then sell them off or rent them, for more money. And then we go to the next town. We were like these traveling gypsies going from place to place. And so I had to always adjust very quickly. I went to that school, then I went to this school, then I went to that school. And it was always, this thing where you have to adjust to a new school. And maybe that was the greatest talent that I got along the way, but completely by accident.
I love that because, we both got kids, obviously. And I mean, it's interesting because, there was an argument given to me a long time ago about, kids which are more global, more open-minded, or kids which get to travel a lot, right, are putting the deep end, like when you see people traveling with their kids, some look down upon it and say, oh, we shouldn't be traveling with the kids, they're too young to travel.
Yeah, that was me.
That was you. Yeah.
Like, what are these kids do?
Yeah.
But honestly, I think you're right. I think it's, and when I look at it now, you and I are going to be doing a lot more of that, and everybody's going to be doing a lot more of that. But it does make it harder to travel, I have to admit. I always thought it would be even harder than it is right now. But when we carry up, we've got a 1-year-old, so when I carry her across the airport, we're packed out. We've got so much luggage. The kid is like this big, like 7 kilos, and all the luggage is like 3 pounds coming with bags. And we're like, oh my God, it's so difficult, But it's just, there is something so special about it, and I think being an older dad, I really appreciate that even more now.
Yeah, and it just really just resourcefulness. Like we're here in Bali, obviously, and it's me and Marina and our 2 kids, 4 and 6. We move every 6 months, and we're doing it again. And it's at first I think I was a person who didn't really like change. No. Even though I grew up in kids' homes and there's always change happening, I was anti-change. And now I kind of embrace it because I get that each place we move to, it like unlocks a different part of my brain to think differently about the same thing. And I think the resourcefulness is the key right now, especially now, right? Resourcefulness is the absolute key, and I love it, And when I look at your story, you give your parents so many more props, because they were the ones who are doing it, and you know how difficult it is, right?
Absolutely. It was their neglect that made me the person that I am. It was. But you know what? It didn't give me a fear of moving. Of moving. I kind of, every time we go somewhere else, I go, oh, okay, it's a new opportunity to meet something else. And even now, you make all of your friends, and you have those friends for life if you move to one area, and then you move to the next place, and then you make new connections, and that's also nice. So imagine I could, I never lived in Bali before, and now we go out, and I know everybody. It's really cool. But then I'm also like that in certain other cities around the world, and ideally, I want to be like that everywhere I go.
Yeah,
and
got it.
That's kind of, the business that I started is for people to have that kind of life everywhere they go. And that was important to me in my life story, and that's kind of, when the chips came down, I thought, this is what I'd like to do.
Wow.
It's a fun thing.
Yeah, and for those of you who are watching, was my next question. So thanks for the great segue.
The plug.
The plug. Let's give it a plug. So Commune and Commune X. So if you could perhaps just explain a little bit about each, and then the next question would be like, how did it all start? But maybe explain for those who don't know what those two platforms are.
Okay, so they're technically, what are they? They're a social media network that allows you to go into any city, and as soon as you touch down, you just log in, you say, hey, I've just checked in, I've just landed, whether you want to make that public or not, it's up to you, but I've come to Bali. And as soon as you've come to Bali, I get our ambassadors to reach out to you. They go, hey, Rob, welcome to Bali, welcome to Milan, welcome to wherever you happen to be. We're in 60 cities around the world. As soon as you land in that place, people reach out to you. And they say, hey, welcome to the city. What do you want to do while you're here? And they'll show you, through the app, you'll see all of the events that are going on, all our favorite places, all of the events that we're hosting, the events that other people are hosting. It shows you all of our hotels, where do all our friends stay. So you can actually see what other people are staying in what hotel. You can ask us, and we say, hey, you know what? Actually, a lot of people are staying in this area or this hotel, and we can even connect you with those people. If you've gone somewhere like Art Basel or Burning Man, we help you find communities in every place you go, basically. And we set up hotels for you cheaper than anybody else. We set up, and you can meet all these new people. So if Facebook allows you to, add the people you've met in real life. So I've met you. Once I've met you, I can now put you on Facebook, and then I can follow you on Facebook and see what you've just done. And that's sort of nice. There's something nice about it. But on our app, what you can do is you basically go in, you meet all these people online, but then you spend your time with them in real life. And I suppose that's what I would prefer to do is, that I'm looking forward to activities with new people and that I make new friends everywhere I go, rather than just see what my other friends have done in the past. So that was kind of the main impetus. And we had started off with only Commune X. And what happened was I had a couple of very accomplished friends who'd made, either a lot of money or a lot of success, the Nurul Rabinis or the Alexander Shulgins of the world, who are just like these globe-trotting, amazing guys. But then, of course, I had all these other friends who were just, younger or just party people from Burning Man. And what happened was that we had them all on one platform. And the problem that I used to have is everybody used to complain. Because it was like, you couldn't keep anybody happy. Because if I had, all the really successful people wanted to hang out, all the cool people wanted to hang out. And so it was really difficult to pitch them the same sort of stuff. And then we did this deal with this modeling, this modeling app. And we brought all these, models on there as well. So it just became the weirdest party of all time, So what we thought we'd do is we're going to split these two and make one a super cool party app where everybody gets to meet, cool people, and the other one is more like a business thing for global change makers and that kind of stuff.
Got it.
So those are the apps in it. Hey, buddy.
So we've got another one. Hello, mate. Hello. Welcome. Grab a seat. Grab a coffee. Good to see you, mate. Good to see you. And awesome. So then, but what inspired you to do it?
Okay, the official version. Now I'll tell you, the real version. So officially, what had happened was that I was at Burning Man actually. The first time I thought about it is we were at Burning Man, and we thought this is such an amazing community that we have, and we have to keep this community alive, wherever we go. It was such a beautiful thing for us, and we came up, we were maybe high, I can't remember, but we decided that what we should do is we should get an island and we should all move to this island. And while you're there, you're thinking this is a great idea. And then I kind of remembered my dream had always been that I was going to move to St. Bart's and live on that island. But after 2 weeks, that dream turned sour. And I thought, can't wait to get out of here. And so I thought, maybe an island is not so good. But imagine feeling it like you're at home everywhere you go. Yeah. And that's kind of what it really came down to. And I was going to London, and everybody had been telling me, come to London, it's going to be amazing, Wimbledon is on. And I said, great, I'm coming. And I came down, and everybody had gone to Spain, to Italy. Everybody was out of town for that week. And I'm just walking around, just going, great. It was the perfect weather in London. There was no one around, and I thought, what a bummer. Then the week later, they came back, and they introduced me to all these amazing people. And I thought, why couldn't you just introduce me to these people before? Yeah. You could have just said, hey, here are 5 people that I think you'll really get on with. Yeah. And here are 5 people that you might get on with in this city. Imagine if my 10 friends had each given me 5 of their friends to hook me up with. I would have had the most amazing time that first week. As it was, I'm still best friends with all the people that I met afterwards. And I've kind of gotten rid of the other friends that I used to have. It really, Facebook is just not built for that. Facebook is the complete opposite of what this is supposed to be. Yeah. The idea is that if you go to any city where I know everybody, why shouldn't I hook you guys up when you go there? And I say, hey, you know what? I think you guys are in the same business, and that might be a great business relationship. You might be interested in, like one of my investors, he came in and he invested in this thing and in that thing, and everywhere he went, like Greek restaurant in Bangkok, sure, I'll do it. It was so interesting. And of course, they all met, people on there. Some people, of course, met the love of their lives on the platform. And that's what you could hope to get out of a platform, is to get real life connections for people. And that's kind of what we did.
Got it. And thank you. We've got an in-house studio audience here, guys. So remember, we've got 2 this week.
Hundreds of people.
Hundreds.
Not 2. Really?
200 people. I said 200 people. 200 people.
Better.
They're loud enough for that. So look, because you're a gypsy, right? So we've gone to Commune X. So let's move on. So tell me about the restaurant and how you got involved in all of that restaurateur business and start to look after some pretty high-profile people.
Bad idea. Just another one of the bad ideas. So actually, I was a tennis coach, and we used to go to this restaurant in Sydney that we really liked, Italian restaurants, and both the head sommelier and the guy who owned the whole place were good friends. And we used to just hang out all the time. I used to go into their little wine bar, and we used to drink, and when I was drunk one night, they said, why don't you invest? And I said, sure, I'll invest. And we were going to get a place in the city of Sydney. And then another Italian company, while we were, stuffing around with the rent increases and stuff, somebody else came and took that space. And they said, oh, sorry, would you still be keen to invest in the next place we get? And I said, why don't we just get a new place in Hong Kong? I've still got 2 places that I used to work in. Why don't we get those 2 places and we start this chain in Hong Kong as well. So we moved the whole thing into Hong Kong, and there we started this amazing restaurant. And we used to get amazing critics, but I had no idea of how the whole supply chain worked because all our food was imported from France and Italy every single day. There'd be a golden BMW X5 running up, the lid going up, and some guy with plastic gloves bringing out these mushrooms because our produce was really good, but it had to be all brought in. In Australia, we had everything. But in Hong Kong, everything had to come from the market in Perpignan every single day.
Wow.
It was like, oh, this was a poor idea. And all our wine was basically hand-picked by one guy who was just, cycling through the Italian countryside, finding organic, biodynamic wine that we would sell in the restaurant because that's all we sold. And it was always really strange wines that we had. Like you'd look at these wines and I'd be there with 5 or 6 amazing sommeliers and be pouring all these wines. And I'd be getting this wine. And I'm going, am I drinking what everybody else is drinking? Because there seems to be a lot of excitement. And I'm looking at this wine. It looked like a cheap white wine where you took the pulp of an entire orange and mixed some ginger juice in it or something and swirled it around. I was going, oh. And that's what we were selling to people. So it was really expensive wine that tasted really weird. And, look, it was again a great time and a great place to meet lots of people. But would I open up another restaurant? No. Listen carefully, don't open a restaurant. Whatever you do, don't do it. And you lose the love of food.
Yeah.
That's the other thing.
Yeah.
Like I'm living with an Italian friend at the moment, and he's going, you're so easygoing about food, you'll eat anything. I'm going, yeah, pretty much. I used to be that guy who go, let's go through a list of 100 places where we're going to dine tonight. And eventually I'm like, I don't care. It's more important who I dine with than where I dine. That's really the thing.
And what keeps coming through, again and again and again, is just this resourcefulness, right? The way you grew up as a kid, traveling from place to place, and traveling will be the gypsy, and being put into lots of different situations, and each one, you get on with people, you're a natural people person, and then I love it because you're just making the most of every situation, and it's like, I've got this little thing I call 3 pillars of purpose, right? And like the first, it doesn't matter, no one is better or worse than the other, but the first one is like having no purpose. It's literally every day that comes, I just take it as it comes, and I look for the good in everything. And I'm living in the moment as much as possible. And during those times, some of the most incredible things happen to me. And then the second pillar of purpose is about being pushed or pulled by something, actually. So growing up in a kid's home, having this discovering racism and all this other stuff that we'll get into later, I felt that I needed to become an ambassador to bridge the gap between black and white. But I was pushed by that because I experienced racism early. I didn't like it. I was pissed off at this particular thing that happened to me. And it was my way to fight back, was to be the guy in the middle of the glue, to bring people together, recognizing what you know already, which is like on a certain level, we all have our own unique story. But on another level, we're all the same. And I would connect with those things that made us human around the things that we can all enjoy and love. And the third pillar of purpose is about being pulled or being inspired by something, right? And that is in the realm of, you're watching something on TV, and something just drops into your head. You see something that affects you palpably, viscerally, and you're like, you know what? I'm going to do something about this because I can, and I'm available to do it. And again, what I love about your story is that, like, number one seems to come up a lot at the moment, which is just like I'm what Philip Gested, Philip calls following your bliss. Following your bliss, because again, what this is about.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
What I love people to get, if you're watching this, is that like Marc is a living example of when you follow your bliss, you follow what lights you up, what you're passionate about, what takes you at the time. And what I really, really, truly love is that you've turned on its head, was it jack of all trades, master of none? Yeah. And like, what I can see in your story, which is rare for me, is someone, even though you downplay it a little bit, but is someone who's actually had a lot of success in so many different areas that it's literally going against, this common held belief of I have to focus on one thing exclusively for the rest of my life, which I absolutely love. So look, so on that note, so going to skiing, right? So what the heck? Going to skiing. So you were the first heli skiing instructor in Switzerland. Can you tell us a little bit more about how that happened?
Yeah, that was another stupid mistake. It all sounds really good now in hindsight. You kind of think, oh yeah, that's great. But the truth is, I was doing these excursions. So I worked in these Swiss hotels, and they couldn't hire me as a ski instructor because by that time I had an Australian passport, but I was good at what I was doing, and so they said, look, why don't you become like an actor/travel guide? And I went, all right, because that's what we can get you a visa for. And I went, okay, that sounds really weird, right? And I went, okay. So I came up with this idea of how can I still get, to be snowboarding and skiing while I've got this weird kind of thing going. And so what I ended up doing was I ended up arranging the heli ski thing in Switzerland. Nobody was heli skiing in Switzerland. It was the most pathetic heli ski ever, because you go up on this completely groomed run, you'd have like a 50-meter head start on everybody else, and then you're like, oh, just on the face right now. But what happened was that it became so wildly popular that what happened to me is that every morning at 7 a.m., after we had these big parties the night before, every morning at 7 a.m., I had to be on this bus with a couple of bottles of champagne for champagne breakfast. And you're going around a huge bus with 50 people and filling everyone's glasses and, going through the same thing every single day. You get to the helicopter, the heli center, and there the helicopters are waiting for you. And you go up in the helicopter like you do every single day. And you go through the Alps, and the air is really thin, and suddenly you just drop. And you're like, everybody's screaming in there. You're like, yeah, it's just like yesterday and the day before. And I was like living Groundhog Day. It was a hell. I put myself into this thing where I couldn't get out of it anymore. And every single day I'm on that helicopter going, okay, I'm making the same jokes. I'm telling the same stories. They'd be like, hey, how does an Australian get to be in Switzerland? And I'd be like, oh, here's another interesting question that I've answered like already 12 times on the way up to your row. I mean, it was just terrible, And eventually, I think that's why I leave jobs, because I just go, it looked like a great idea that I was going to get myself in, but actually I'm living in hell, where I had to retell the same story over and over and over again. But it was a couple of fun years. I loved it, and I used to make so much money as a tennis instructor during the summer, and then I used to go to St. Moritz in school and spend all that money during the ski season because it was so expensive. You get one mineral water, it was like 15 euro. It was 15 Swiss francs like 20 years ago. You're like, oh. You're looking at the snow going, that looks attractive right now. you're like, oh, it's so expensive. But no, look. And then from that, actually, the whole stunt thing came up through that. So I was working with this crazy, weird guy, Rico Schnella, and he had us racing down hills on mountain bikes, before they became, like, they were really massive Porsche mountain bikes with stud wheels. And so we were racing skiers on those things. Yeah. And then they had this thing called a snow scoot, which is like a snowboard with these handles. Yeah. Which is like a death trap. No wonder that thing didn't take off. I was always there promoting it, but secretly I thought, people are going to die on that thing. I can just see people going over a cliff going, oh! There was just no way of slowing that thing down. You took so much momentum. And so, yeah, I ended up doing these ski stunts every night, racing against skiers, snowboarders. And from that, I got recruited into the movies. So I ended up in this German TV show, doing all the stunts. First, like a ski stunt. And the guy said, "Oh, you're really cool. You should come and work with us." And I'm going, "What do you do?" And they're like, "We run this German TV show that's been on for 30 years, like a crime TV show that's on every 2 weeks or something." And so then I moved with them and, and started doing stunt work. So that was the end of the skiing career and the beginning of the stunt career.
I was kidding about the stuntman thing earlier.
No, that is true. And that all ended when I was in a small town outside of Germany, like outside of Dresden, called Parchim. And every night I was doing small things like the car, going off a cliff, like things that were really well planned. And this day, it wasn't a big stunt. It was supposed to be very simple. I had to come on a motorbike, light a Molotov cocktail, throw it through this window where there was supposed to be like an election office. And it was supposed to smash the glass, drop to the ground, and a small charge, lights up and burns the poster as the camera moves in. I light that thing thinking, "Whoa, it feels pretty powerful." And I throw it through the glass, and the whole thing just goes bang, and we all get blown up. Focus pullers, cameramen, like the whole crew. We all get just absolutely smashed. And it's not like the movies. It was terrible. Terrible. And I had massive glass just above here, and people are looking at me going, what? Like I pulled the motorbike off me because you've got so much adrenaline. But it's not like the movies where you just go, "Oh, just an explosion. Now I'm just going to keep on." It was terrible. Like you had bleeding from the ears. You're in absolute shock. They take you to an East German hospital, and they tie you up with leather straps and put a lot of morphine into you. And then you're kind of half awake, and you're going, "Oh, I can't feel my legs." You're like, what the hell? It turns out they strap them because you get this thing called Schleuder trauma, where you're in your bed and you re-experience what the bomb was like.
Oh, shit.
And so in order to not have that happen and you flying out of your bed, they tie you down.
Wow.
But I didn't know that. I couldn't really see properly. I couldn't hear properly. And at the time I was supposed to go, that was going to finish, and I was going to go to Sydney to do the Star Wars film and do a stunt for that. Wow. And I was a big Star Wars fan. And they just said, "Yeah, you're not going anywhere. You're staying right here." And I ended up missing that one, which is a bit of a bummer. But so that was the skiing stuntman transition. And from that, I had to promise the family that there was no more stunt work anymore. So that was it. And it was such a basic stunt. It's always these small things that kill you.
Yeah.
It's not the really big stuff where you're going off a cliff or where everything is planned really well. It's something small and stupid like that one.
Yeah.
That just looked like nothing. Yeah, it was crazy.
My God. And I mean, look, for those just watching now, this is just SpeakuP Monday, live from Tropical Nomad.
The first of three.
Every Monday, like where we got Marc-Yannick Ceyton, give him a chance to grab some water. And look, if you're just tuning in or watching this now, look, I love this guy. Like, and every time I chat to him, it's like talking to an old friend, and I'm always laughing, right? So if on the playback of this, all you can hear is me laughing, I apologize in advance, right? But I can't help it. It's just the way it is, and you're probably laughing along with me anyway. So there we go.
Laugh at my pain. I was in hospital. I'm not joking. The traumatic experiences.
I think you get some blood on you.
This is the crazy thing which I love about life, right? Is that you can never judge a book by its cover. And so many times, I remember working on doors in Sydney as like a bouncer before I started to run the clubs. And I just remember, having this experience where, I kept judging people by the cover and getting it so wrong till I realized again, that actually,
Is this where you apologize for not letting me into the club?
Yes, it is, in a small way.
You definitely not. Back off.
And it's interesting because we've all got a story, and it's phenomenal. And look, so the last switch we're going to do, you mentioned about the tennis coaching. So for those people who don't know, Marc was also a tennis professional. So is there anything that you can share with us about becoming a tennis pro? And because I know we've spoken about this before about the glamorous life that is not.
Oh, it's not. Yeah, not when you play like me. Then it's not that glamorous. You know, it's like, it's kind of like, you know, like a gladiator when they pull you out in front of the lions. You're like, out you go. The thing was, I mean, I was pretty good. I just wasn't at that level of the really, really top guys.
Yeah.
You know, there were the guys that were the top 10, 20 players in the world. And every time you played them, it was just playing somebody on another level. And this is the whole, you know, Malcolm Gladwell, 10,000 hours. These guys probably had 100,000 hours. They were just kids that were drilled from the very beginning. And there my myriad of interests didn't really help. You know, like I didn't want to be a tennis player. When I was 15, I wanted to be a football player. You know, so I was playing for some top teams in Germany. That's what I wanted to do. But when my mother said, we're moving to Australia, I went, okay, I'm not going to be playing soccer there. That's when I went to tennis. And other kids had just specialized already.
Yeah.
So that specialization, I was just lacking that. And I would come in, and I also think that I'm probably not, you know, I wasn't like, I have to win this, you know. Like, I was always okay losing. You know, I really didn't mind. Like, I play with this guy now, and he used to be 39 in the world. And before him, I had not lost a match in like 10 years. You know, like I was winning every single time. Now I lose every week, and I love it. You know, like I have no problem losing at all. It's just watching him is like poetry in motion. I just love playing against somebody who is so good at what they do. And him staying in Bali is probably one of the reasons why I stay as well now. You know, it's really, it's a beautiful thing when you watch an athlete at the very top of their game.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I think I came close enough. But I probably did better as a coach than I did as a, you know, as a tennis pro as such.
And then, so you were coaching the Australian team
So I
as well?
started off it started off in Hong Kong when I was doing all this mini tennis stuff. And this American guy said, I really love your movie script. If I buy your movie script, will you move with me to Beijing and set up a tennis academy? And I went, what, a tennis academy? All right. So I went over there, and he had raised all this money from this American stockbrokers. You know, this is just before 2008. This is probably why 2008 happened. I'm partially responsible. You know, it was the worst investment ever. They gave this guy so much money to do a medium risk venture in China. We set up this tennis academy. We had the world's largest apartment. When I moved out of my apartment, it ended up becoming the Ghanaian embassy.
Wow.
That's how big the apartment was. It was crazy. We were playing mini tennis in the living room. You know, it was like, and so what happened was that, see, it's again just taking that shot. I kind of got that chance, and I thought, okay, I'm going to sell this movie. I'm going to go and open up this tennis academy in Beijing. At the end of the day, I just thought, what do I have to lose? And I just went ahead and I did it, and then I suffered for 2 years terribly in Beijing. But it was fun, you know, and the stuff that I got to do there, you know, I was playing with all the biggest generals. I lost every single tennis match while I was there. You have to lose every time. You always lose.
Yeah.
You'd be playing, you know, we win the China Open the next day. You're playing two 60-year-old generals. You have to lose. I have this shot where I hit the ball through the legs. And my partner was always like, don't you do it, we'll be shot. You know? You're like, oh, that's right, you forget. And you just easily hit the ball back, and then they can beat you. I lost every match. You know, like in China, that's kind of how you roll.
Wow. Wow. So look, we're going to...
Yeah, so there was China, and then
Yeah.
I was in China as a coach, and then Tennis Australia said, why don't you come back and work with us? And so I went there for about 2 years or so. And eventually I got fired from there as well because I told all the kids they're not going to make it. Yeah, I was just being honest. I didn't want parents to invest all their money when there was absolutely no chance these kids are going to make it. It was just so unrealistic. And because everything centers around money today, I mean, I also lost really my university job because I didn't let the kids get cheated by the agents. So really I lost the job there. And then I lost my job at Tennis Australia because I told all the kids, you're not going to make it. Don't waste your money on this pipe dream. Finish school, you know, and see how you go afterwards. Not everybody gets to be a tennis pro these days. There's a million kids trying to do it. There's only going to be 50 who are going to make any kind of living out of it.
Got it. Yeah.
It's a terrible gamble you'd be taking, and you'd be very unhappy with it. So
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, you know, like one thing which we never discussed that I get from you, right, is you have a huge heart, right? That's what I get from you. And like hearing you as well, you know, talk about the kids, you know, that you don't want to cheat them, right? You don't want to cheat them from, you know, like committing to something that you had the experience, you had the background, you had the knowledge, you had the know-how to realize that, hey, you're not going to make it. So, you know, change, don't waste this time and do something else. So then stepping a little bit further into that. So like, you know, like how would you describe yourself? Would you describe yourself as a humanitarian? Would you describe yourself as a person who is, you're a people person, right? That's always brutally honest with people. How would you describe yourself?
No, I wouldn't say I'm always brutally honest with people. I'm nice to people, you know, like I think generally I try to be nice. But, you know, if you're going to, if it means that you're risking your parents' livelihood, and I don't need to just to make some money for Tennis Australia, I didn't need to tell these kids, like fluff these kids and tell them, oh yeah, you're gonna make it. You know, the guy who I ended up losing my job over was this young kid. He was 18 years old. He had never lost a match. He never won a match. He'd never won a match in any tournament. And he's sitting there, and we're having lunch together in this sort of big group of us. And he's going, I'm going to really go for it this year. I'm going, what are you talking about? I mean, like, you're on court 18 with 9-year-old girls. You are not going to make it. You've never won a match. At this age, none of these kids are going to make it because you're all just paying $100 a day, and these people are cheating you. This is not for real. The same with my university. Agents were cheating on the IELTS exams, brought these kids from China, falsified the IELTS tests. They came in, I was having them at university, and then they tell them, oh, the inner city of Sydney is very dangerous. You need to live in Campbelltown, like 70 kilometers outside of town, and charging the most incredible rents. And when I said to the kids, don't be crazy, you all just move together into this apartment, the agents were like, what the hell is this guy doing? You know, he's taking away all our livelihoods. And all I was doing was I just like justice. You know, it's really important to me that nobody gets away with this kind of crap. And that's really why I ended up working for myself. Because everywhere I worked, people always came up with the most shady sort of business practices. And I think that's really what it was. And modern business, that's just how it is. You know, you go to Tennis Australia, they lost all their money in the 2008 financial things because they were investing it in the stock market, not into tennis or into welfare of anybody. They were just trying to make more money. And that's why I like doing my own business, and I can decide what the moral compass of my company is.
Got it.
Always is.
And that's a beautiful, I really appreciate that. And I mean, you know, so the equity and fairness that you have within you, where do you think that came from?
I don't actually know. I think it's just something that you acquire. I had some really good mentors. Like, I didn't really have a dad, but I had some mentors. Like, because I grew up pretty much without a dad, all these guys kind of said, oh, I'll take you under my wing, even though I didn't really want that. I had all these guys trying to give me a moral compass. You know, I had a stepdad who was pretty, you know, he was pretty on the straight and narrow, and you know, an uncle who was a huge influence on me. And I think it's just, these people blaze a path and you follow their example. And if you're lucky to be surrounded by those kinds of people, then, you know, you happen to have that kind of path. And it's also, I think, just something you're born with, actually. Of course, most of it you develop on the outside, but some of it I think you're actually born with. And I'm not saying that I am the person everyone should follow. I'm not the best person by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm you know, I think I'm reasonably, you know, I'm reasonably in tune with what should be done or what needs to be done. So even if people cheat me, I pretty much always go, okay, let's look past that and let's still try and work something out. You know, so I had one guy who was a good friend of mine, was blackmailing me, and I still said, okay, let's make sure that you get what you need. And it's always important to me that I don't leave any of those businesses that I've done in a bad way. There's nobody who can come up here and say, oh, that guy's a dick, he cheated us on this, he cheated us on that. I don't think I have anybody like that. So, you know, I don't have to, you know, I don't have to wake up or turn around to my shoulder every night and think, oh, you know, who's going to be around there? For the most part, I think I've done the right thing.
Got it. And if you don't mind me asking, so your dad left early, or? My
dad left early. He just wasn't really a dad. He was kind of this really cool guy, really intelligent guy. I like my dad a lot, but he just wasn't a family guy. You know, he was always off on some other, on some other adventure, and I probably got a lot from him, more than I would care to have. But he was just that kind of guy, you couldn't tie him down.
Yeah.
And he was quite old when he married my mom. My mom was 20, he was double her age. And he just had all these kids everywhere, just started franchises everywhere. But he never looked after any of them. He was just always off, on another adventure. So.
Wow. Do you think you follow after him in some ways? Not in all, but some ways?
Yeah, definitely. I think, there is definitely some of that stuff that I still got. My mother tried to beat the rest of it out of me, but she couldn't. I think she really tried. I have to give her, I have to say, she'd be like, oh, you're just like your father. I'm going, and whose fault is that? That's not my fault. You should have chosen a better person. It wasn't my fault, but definitely, the genetic, it still comes through. It definitely comes through, and unavoidably, I have a lot of those features in me, and but you just have to learn to embrace those things as well. It's fine.
And then, like, being a dad now, because it's interesting you said that your dad, was late, double the age.
No, he'd already had lots of kids before, though. He'd already been doing franchises early. Yeah. And then with your mom, I waited a long time. Yeah. I mean, really, everybody had given up on me. Everyone's just said, "Oh, this is never going to happen," and I just thought it wasn't the right time. And when my wife said, "Oh, by the way, we're expecting," I went, "Oh," literally, I just wanted to run away. My first instinct was just to deny it was mine and run away. But then I thought, why not? And I think it's a good time, and it's the best thing I've done. It's really, really fun.
Yeah, and it seems to what I enjoy about that is that, it kind of opens up another doorway somewhere.
Amazing.
And you go through that different doorway and
you become so much of a better person. I actually really find that it's made me a much nicer guy still. And I just love it. And the love you have for your child is so immense. I think my wife is the most amazing creature, but I would use her as a human shield to protect my child. She is, the baby is just, you just have so much love for your baby. It's amazing. It's really good.
And because I think I had mine, I had mine late as well, so late 40s, mid 40s and up. And then the last one, I guess, closer to 50. And I think that, in some ways that's probably a good thing. I don't think earlier on I would have been ready. And I don't think you're ever ready, by the way. But
yeah, you're never ready.
But in the sense of there's a lot to do. And from what it sounds like, you were doing a lot, So as you mentioned before, it kind of came at a time for you that you were actually ready for it. And I mean, and looking a little bit at your family history, because I love to kind of, if they're there, sometimes they're not, it's just connections, right? So 0 to 7, we're in a theta brainwave state, we're like a human sponge, and we mimic our caregivers or our parents, whichever one is around us more, and we kind of become an extension of that, and then our RAS, this reticular activating system, kicks in and filters out all the images which go in line with the unconscious bias that we were kind of conditioned into doing, and most of us stay asleep unconsciously forever until we die, unless near-death experience or something which causes us to say, hey, why do I think this way? Or why do I think this way about this person or about myself or about the situation? So it's, it's fascinating to hear, we've done 65 of these, right? Well, this is number 65. But it's interesting, as a coach and everything else, I just keep seeing this connection, maybe because I'm looking for it, right? But I keep seeing this connection, and it's, your mom, you must have so much love for her, because, from what it sounds like, I know that she was trying to condition you out of me.
Yeah, she really tried that. She was not at all. I mean, I think we have a really good relationship. I mean, we talk every day. But the interesting thing is that she tried everything to get me onto the straight and narrow. That was her ambition in life, is for me not to become like my dad. It was literally that was her greatest. And maybe she'd be just enough sense into me so I didn't quite go into his road. But look, my dad was a charming guy. He was a charming guy. And I remember my aunt saying once, oh, look, you've got such a charming nephew. My uncle said, yeah, he's kind of cool, but actually his dad was much more interesting and much more fun. I'm like, oh, thanks a lot. So, you know, my dad must have been a pretty fun guy. Because both my uncles, because both my uncles said, oh, yeah, you should marry that guy. He's amazing. You know? So, you know, my dad was a cool guy, but he just wasn't, you know, he wasn't a family guy, that's all. And you know, it's also easier to say, I'm a family guy when you do it at 50. You know, it's like for me, it's, you know, I wouldn't condemn anybody who's having a kid at 25 and going, what do I do now? You know, I think that would be very difficult. You know, like, you're a bit more settled now, and I think everything comes a little bit easier. You're a little bit more financially set up, and I think that does make a difference. And I've got the time, I can work from home now. I mean, I've spent already so much time in the first year of my child's life. It's amazing. You know, we have my wife at home, myself at home, nannies at home, helpers at home. You know, it's amazing. It's the best way to have a kid. And being stuck in Bali was fantastic. Yeah.
Because you were going to move to somewhere else, remember?
Yep. What was it? April 1, we were moving to Geneva. And then May 1, we were moving to Bergamo, which ended up being the center of COVID. So I'm glad we didn't move there. But, you know, that was kind of what it was. We had this thing where every summer we've been going to Europe. So we never really lived in Bali. We used to do maybe 2-3 months a year in Bali, you know, maybe 2 months in Australia, a couple of months in, you know, sort of Hong Kong, Singapore, travel to places, and then spend maybe 3-4 months in the summer in Europe, like southern France, northern Italy, that kind of stuff.
And then, like, so for you, like, backing up a little bit, so, like, do you believe in God? Do you believe the stuff was predestined for you, or do you feel that you just made the most of whatever came your way?
Well, I'm not a believer in any deity or anything like that, that's for sure. And I think, you know, there are so many options that you have in life, and you basically, nobody can really tell you what the right path is. You know, every day you wake up and there are like 3, 4, 5, 10 paths, depending on how faceted your life is, and you have to just pick. Always, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And a lot of it is just chance. I mean, that day that I met my wife, I was on this, I've been at Art Basel for the whole week. We'd been partying, and my friend Sean said, you know, come on up. I've got these 2 Hungarian twins waiting for us. And I said, I can't. I'm at a business meeting right here. I'm not going off with some Hungarian twins. And he came up to me and goes, they left because you. And I said, don't worry, I'll make it up to you. So 2 days later, I'm on a rooftop at a party I did not want to go to, but it just happened to be across the road from my restaurant. And it was a friend who was about to go back to New York City. And I go on that rooftop, and I said yes. And I'm on this rooftop thinking, this is the worst party I've ever been to. And up comes my future wife, you know, and it's just chance. I mean, was that predestined? I don't think so.
Destiny.
It was a lucky choice, and it could have been any one of a million, you know, ways or roads. I think, are you getting questions?
Yeah, questions are coming in.
I'm not answering anything. Have you more questions?
Oh, man. Okay, we've got a few questions here. Yeah, okay.
Why?
I don't see any questions. So look, all right, so coming a little bit full circle. So now, so you're here in Bali. You have a beautiful wife, Kate, and I met her, and she's such a wonderful person, is the impression which I get. And you know, you've got all these businesses going on. You've had an extraordinary life, right? I believe, and yet you still remain kind of grounded, in my opinion, and down to earth.
No, not at all. You know, when I rocked up here, I wanted makeup people. I was very disappointed. I asked for the lights to be lowered. Grounded. What are you talking about, grounded? Yeah, that's because I don't have anything to really, you know. No, not even to prove. I have plenty to prove. I just don't have that much where I go, oh, wow, I've done such an amazing achievement or anything like that. To be honest, I'm not just being humble. I just really haven't been that successful. You know, like I've just been kind of a nice, successful at lots of different things. Yeah. But, you know, like it wasn't like I've won a Nobel Prize or an Oscar or, you know, I've not gone to the pinnacles of whatever I've been doing. All I've been really doing is just following my bliss, and, you know, whatever was fun at the time, I just go, yep, that sounds like it's good fun. And you just wing it. You don't know what's going to happen. You just wing it. You know, like there is no right or wrong. there is just something that works out a little bit better than it might have worked out. There could have been so many different paths you chose. And it's just, I think the one thing that you have to take, I saw a couple of years ago, there was this story on American Life, and there was this Bosnian kid whose dad was killed during the Bosnian War. And he was incredibly lucky and happy to have his mom and his two sisters alive. And then he was incredibly lucky that the library gave him carte blanche to borrow as many books as he wanted. And then he was lucky to be taken out of Bosnia during the war and taken to the US, where he grew up in some project and then ended up getting scholarships to grade school and made his life. And it was all a great story. And he was all worried because he thinks that he cheated on some test that got him to this great school. And they found his teacher years later, and she goes, no, it was nothing to do with that test. And at the very end of it, his wife comes up and she just says, you know, the thing with my husband is that he sees the glass half full every single day. No matter what happens to him, he always sees the positive in it. And I think maybe more than anything else, the follow the bliss thing, and that I'm positive about whatever little success that I get, that's probably what's helped me, you know, to stay happy and grounded and satisfied enough with what I've done. You know, but that I would say is the main thing, is that I always think the glass is half full. You know, like I wake up and I go, oh, life is pretty good. You know, and like this morning I wake up, we've got an incredible beachfront house that we're living in, and I've got these mates preparing all the breakfast, and I'm going, life is pretty good. like it's not bad. But it's just being thankful and appreciating every day, I think.
I agree, man. Great gratitude from our studio audience.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not, and I think if you saw things, you know, glass half empty, that would just make life that just so much more difficult. But I think you just have to kind of say, okay, you're on this, you know, for a really short amount of time, and every day you've got to try and make the best of it. It's almost like writing a script every single day for your life.
Yeah. And then, like, looking forward, you know, from what it sounds like, you know, you take kind of the days as they come. But is there any project or plan, maybe humanitarian, or ideas that you have in your awareness that you'd love to do?
Look, obviously, within the commune, we have all these charity things. There are a couple of projects there that I'm really, really pushing that I would love to get going. There's so much that I would love to achieve, you know, because I still feel that there is more than enough time. If I get the commune up and going and have the charity platform on there, and I get a new CEO to come and run the country, the company, and I just basically get to go around the world, meet lots of fun people, and bring in all the favorite projects that I would love to fund onto that platform, that would be a happy life for me, you know. And I don't want to stop working. I think what I'm doing is really good fun, and I will only do things that bring me joy or that are good fun. So I would say, and I only hang out with people that I like or that bring me joy in my life. You know, if I meet somebody and I just go, oh, I just don't hang out with them. You know, I try not to. Got it. And so probably getting towards the end. So is there anything that maybe you'd like to mention or you'd like to discuss that maybe comes into your mind? While you think about that, I'll do this. So guys, so remember, this is SpeakuP Monday. Every Monday here from Tropical Nomad, 7 p.m. till whenever we finish, usually around 8 o'clock or 8:30 or something like that. And if you are moved to want to be on SpeakuP Monday, okay, just get in touch with me. The entry requirements aren't really that high. Hey! Oh, man!
Even though Mark is amazing, literally, because you know, like, this thing is self-selecting and self-organizing, right? If you feel it and you feel like, you know, I love to do that, or there's something in there for me, right? What I suggest is, don't give in to the fear. Just reach out to me and do it right now, right? And just say, Rob, I'd love to speak up. And it's self-selecting, self-organizing. And like, on this, I've never really targeted anybody. It's been a conversation that I've had, and either someone has put their hand up or someone that I'm talking to. Like, there's a girl, right? And you can ask her this. She's a funny girl. Name is Matilda Duilestadi. So she is one of the two first women, Indonesian women, to climb the 7 highest mountains on the planet, including Everest, right? So extremely accomplished woman. She was in the audience for SpeakuP Monday the week before. And basically, I had a guest who dropped out, who postponed it to another time. And a friend of mine who introduced me to her, I just, after within 2 minutes of talking to her, I just thought, you know what, you're on next week. You're gonna do this next week. And she was like, no, I'm not. I said, no, but you are. She goes, no, I'm not. I said, are you scared about talking in public? She goes, yeah. I said, look, you've climbed the 7 highest mountains on the planet, including Everest, and you're telling me you can't have a conversation in front of 30 people? She goes, yes. I said, okay, fine. I paused for literally 2 seconds, and the idea dropped in and goes, why don't we do a Q&A? And you know when someone gives you that look like, fuck, you know, I've got nothing left. The answer is yes. It was like that, written on her face. And she
I think that's like, generally the thing. You can't get out of it gracefully. That's why you do the show. That's really how it works.
You know, and funnily enough, that's how the Q&A section of this was actually born. It was born through that conversation, no premeditation, literally just problem solving. And it was like, you know what, we'll do a Q&A then. And we've done 2 since then. And she is amazing. Like, after she started, it's no disrespect, Matilda, but she wouldn't shut up. She kept on going. But I knew she had it in her, right? It's just this thing that goes on, you know? And like, you know, so really, this is self-selecting. People put their hands up because they feel something. And that's what I'm saying, you know, like, just go with it. Go with that flow. Keep on going. And, you know, amazing things will actually happen. So that's one thing. The second thing is, so as you know, we're here every Monday, and 7 p.m. is the time, which is 9 p.m. in Sydney. Now, if you have any last questions, feel free to type some questions into the chat on Facebook.
Can Mark take his shirt off?
No. All right, let's do it. Right, so feel free to do that. And look, so what last questions which come up for me now? So, all right, got it. So now with the charity initiatives that you're doing, which one or two stand out in mind of which you would love to?
There is a guy, David Gardner, who's a good friend, really amazing guy, and they've done a couple of films like Racing Extinction and The Cove, and they're doing a documentary at the moment called The Last Place on Earth. And these guys, they basically go into the jungle, and every day they're filming with drones and cameras, saving orangutans, you know, getting chased around by palm oil, you know, mafia around the place, getting shot at, you know, machetes are thrown at them, people are being kidnapped, you know, and these guys are so into this project and bringing awareness to this thing that you just go, I kind of wish I had that. You know, like, that is such bravery. It's one thing to be on a bike and get it thrown up and getting paid for it, but to go and spend your time in the jungle and doing it really for humanity. I mean, it's such a worthwhile cause that I always go, yep, that needs to be back. So that would probably be the one project that I'm most connected to and that I most want to raise awareness of. So that's something that we're pushing at the moment.
Got it. Far out.
These guys are amazing. Yeah. I mean, you're showing me all this footage and I'm going, oh, you know, like them running around, people shooting at them at the back. You're like, oh my God, why would you do that? And one of them has just had a kid as well, his first baby, and he's still going, yep, I'm ready to go, you know, back into the jungle and taking all that danger, all that risk. I mean, it's one thing swimming with trying to save manta rays while there are sharks around you. These guys have no fear. It's just amazing. In the service of humanity, they'll go to all lengths. And you know, that's something that I admire in people. Yeah, really cool.
And would you say that you have that yourself?
Nope. Yeah. You know, like I definitely have the danger part in it. I would definitely take those risks. But you know, I think that is, I mean, I think that's a calling that these guys have had for their whole lives, and I could definitely do one film, and I think that would be really great, but I just think what they have is that little bit more special, you know, that it's the serving humanity kind of mentality that they've had, and that they're so, you know, they're such strong believers in it. Look, I respect that. I mean, I think you know, I would like to think that I would go into a couple of excursions, but if I keep getting shot at everywhere I go, I'm running, he who fights and runs away may live to fight another day. like, quick, women and myself first. Like, run
for your lives! Oh man! All right. Well, look. Cool. So look, we're going to draw this to this particular one to an end very soon. I'm going to give you the last word, and this can be whatever's in your mind. It could be something you want to leave people with, maybe some advice, or just something which resonates with you. Which I believe in repetition. That people, when they hear things again and again and again, it eventually gets in, it eventually seeps in. And part of this, what we do tonight, is to give people an opportunity to see something about whatever happens here in themselves, and maybe has an opportunity to use that. And in the next day or two, let's say, I'll draw it like this, and I usually do this, but what the heck, repetition, right? It's like a clock. So you've got obviously 1 to 12, and it's like 1 to say 2 or 3 this is what I know that I know. So I know that I know my name, I know where I live, I know where I am, I know my phone number. And then the second one is what I know that I don't know. So then maybe from 2 or 3 to maybe 4 and a bit, maybe 5, say 4 for the sake of argument. This is stuff that I know that I don't know. And this could be trigonometry. I know I don't know trigonometry, but I know
you never used it again. Who cares?
Who needs trigonometry, right? So that's that part. But then 4 to 12 is the interesting part of this stuff is that I don't know that I don't know. And what happens here in that area, the subconscious, is like something, like I asked you a question tonight, and I don't remember what question it was, but it was a question that caused you to stop and think, and maybe the answer didn't come. But the thing is that we're back in that area is where all the growth is. Back in that area is where the stuff comes up. I mentioned before about the theta brainwave state 0 to 7, and then the RAS kicks in, and away you go for the rest of your life until you have maybe a near-death experience or something that causes you to ask why. Why do I think like this? Why do I do like this? So that is the area where I think that juice is. And what I love about what we do here is somehow, some way, that happens for people. Be it for the person being interviewed a few days later, or the people which are listening, right? So again, and I'm not loading up this last thing, because again, I believe that people have got your energy already, right? And that's me, I love that. Again, I love laughter. I love laughing with you, and you crack me up, and I love the interaction and the chemistry that we have. So this last word that I'll get you to say in a second, maybe it's something which, maybe you said before, but resonates with you now, something which you think not people can emulate you with, but something which maybe can inspire them, to be something else.
Yeah, you're not building it up at all.
No. Yes, I am. But I know you've got this, brother. I know you've got this. So before we do that, give you a little more time to think. So guys, we're about to wrap up the stream with Marc-Yannick Ceyton, and I just loved it, mate. You've been an absolute legend, which I knew you would be. And like I said before, we're here every Monday at Tropical Nomad. So thank you to Itchy and Bella behind you. You can't see they're off camera, but they make all this possible. And if you can see this, you'll be amazed. I am every week. It feels like I'm going to Mars. Got all this dashboard and lights and cameras and computer screens. It's great. Love it every day, please. Right. So join us live. So from now on, we've got a few hundred people here in the studio audience. Listen to that! The rebel! Security's coming! So feel free to join us, okay? Every Monday, 7 p.m. at Tropical Nomad. Just come down. Do amazing coffee. It's an amazing place, okay? So without further ado, I'm going to just let this beautiful man close it with a few fitting words of his choosing, and look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you. Over to you, Mark.
Oh, wow. Well, I would say follow your bliss. Definitely follow your bliss and take some risks. I think life is definitely the greatest experiment you're ever going to be part of. And probably as a parting word, I would say, be careful of conspiracy theories. I think at the moment, I'm really a little bit worried because people are just make sure that whatever you see, double check it, triple check it, and don't form your opinions too quickly. It's so easy these days to believe all kinds of stories. And I'm really alarmed around me, a lot of good friends that come up with the craziest notions. Like Tom Hanks has been killed years ago, and there's an actor playing Tom Hanks and his wife, and I'm going, oh, that actor is better than Tom Hanks ever was. You know, like, that's amazing. But, you know, I look at these people and I'm going, these are super smart people. How did this happen? I mean, why would anybody bother killing Tom Hanks? You know, like, but there are so many of these things, and it just seems to build up. And I think the one thing that I would be a little bit worried about is that people are just, you know, and it's Facebook and it's Twitter and it's all kinds of stuff, but just be discerning. Be discerning of any information that you get and really think about these things. You know, like there is not, think about who has the most to gain out of these things. And, you know, because I see people getting very unhappy with all these conspiracy theories that they believe, because it then makes you believe that the world is against you. And I think that's what makes you go that the glass is half empty, that everything conspires against you. Mm-hmm. What you need in life to get through this kind of tough task and this experiment that we're all on, this ride that we're on, is to believe that the glass is half full and that nobody means to do you any harm, and that people are essentially good. So those are my final parting words.
I knew you'd be up to it. Thank you so much, mate. It's been an
pleasure.
It's been an absolute pleasure, mate. Thank you so much.